You step into a room and the air seems ordinary. Coffee, a low laugh, the clink of a cup. But then someone speaks, and a peculiar hush steals across your insides, like a door closing softly where there should have been light. Not loud, not dramatic, just a thinning and almost imperceptible flattening of color in the world. You blink, you smile, you tell yourself it's nothing, until you get home and notice a small exhaustion that wasn't there before. This journey begins with that small exhaustion. Not because I want to frighten you, but because that little noticing is where wisdom begins. We live in a culture that trains us to explain away our nervous system signals. Don't be dramatic. You're too sensitive. They're fine. But sensitivity is not weakness. Sensitivity is data. It is the body's way of pointing to a mismatch between what is said and what is alive. Across time, different languages have named that mismatch differently. Empty vessel, counterfeit spirit, persona without center. Yet, the felt reality is always the same, a presence that performs life without hosting it. Some called them shadows. Others called them machines. Modern culture turned the idea into a meme, a joke, NPCs, lifeless repeaters. But jokes rarely erase the sensation in your chest when someone leaves you subtly diminished. What we'll do in this series is practical and humane. We'll learn to read the quiet grammar of presence. We'll listen to how ancient teachers and modern thinkers describe this phenomenon. But most of all, we'll focus on the one thing that matters, your experience. How the body knows before the mind, how the energy of an encounter lingers like an aftertaste, and what to do, clearly, kindly, firmly when you discover that your light is being borrowed. This is not a lesson in suspicion. It is a lesson in stewardship. Not every drained moment means someone is malicious, but some patterns repeat, and when they do, they teach you three things at once: where your boundaries are thin, how your attention is spent, and how fiercely you must guard the living core inside you. So let us move quietly, but deliberately. We will trace stories from old myths to modern science, but always through the filter of lived experience. By the end of this journey, you will have language for what you felt, tools for what to do next, and a steadier hand on your own attention. Because that is the one gate you must learn to protect. Stay present. The work begins now. Have you ever wondered why nearly every ancient culture told stories of shadows walking in human form? Why the Greeks spoke of hollow shades wandering the underworld? Why the Gnostics warned of counterfeit spirits? Why Eastern mystics described beings bound to matter but cut off from spirit? These were not mere fairy tales. They were attempts to name an intuition that refuses to die. Not everyone who wears a human face carries the same depth of human essence. Plato, the philosopher who gave us the famous allegory of the cave, hinted at this long before the language of soulless beings existed. In his vision, people mistake shadows on the wall for reality itself. And when one prisoner breaks free and glimpses the world outside, he learns that truth is painful, even dangerous. Those who remain chained may see him as mad or even as a threat. What Plato really asked was this: how many of us live chained to illusion, repeating scripts written by others, never tasting the fire of reality directly? Centuries later, the Gnostics sharpened this distinction. They believed the visible world was created not by a benevolent God, but by flawed powers, archons, that trapped human souls in a false reality. In their view, some people carried a divine spark, capable of awakening through gnosis, a direct inner knowing. But others were vessels without that spark. They moved, spoke, and worked, yet remained spiritually asleep. The Gnostics did not invent this idea to create hatred. They whispered it to remind seekers that discernment is everything. To awaken, you must learn to tell the difference between borrowed light and true illumination. Fast forward to modern times, and we find similar echoes in the words of scientists and visionaries. Philip K. Dick, the science fiction writer, once claimed that we are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have is when some variable changes and creates a glitch. He saw cracks in the fabric of reality, moments where the mask slipped and we glimpsed the machinery beneath. If our world is indeed some kind of simulation, then who is to say all its characters are fully conscious? Perhaps some are players, souls with agency, while others are non-player characters, filling space but carrying no story of their own. Nick Bostrom, the Oxford philosopher, put numbers to this intuition. His simulation hypothesis argued mathematically that if any civilization reaches the point of creating simulated consciousness, the odds we ourselves are living in base reality shrink to almost nothing. Elon Musk echoed him with the line that there's a 1 in billions chance we're in reality as it truly is. If that's true, then some humans around us may be fully awake agents of consciousness, while others are repeating programs, placeholders in a cosmic stage set. But here's the paradox. While the philosophers and scientists argue theories, most of us have felt this reality in our bones. Think back to the times you sat across from someone and sensed an eerie emptiness behind their words. Think of the conversations that left you drained, even when nothing was said to offend you. Think of the moments when a smile felt mechanical, a compliment rehearsed, a pair of eyes looked back at you like polished glass. You didn't imagine it. You were touching the ancient suspicion that not everyone around you is awake in the same way you are. Carl Jung, who mapped the landscape of the human psyche, warned that the greatest threat to civilization was the unconscious individual. He described the shadow, the parts of ourselves we refuse to acknowledge. And while Jung often spoke symbolically, his insight cuts deep. If a person becomes too hollowed out by disconnection, if reflection and conscience never take root, then what remains is a persona without a center, a mask with no actor behind it. In that sense, the soulless being is not just myth, it is a psychological possibility. So why does this matter? Because history shows us that without discernment, we fall into two equal dangers. One is naive trust, giving our energy, our love, and our attention to those who cannot return it, leaving ourselves diminished. The other is projection, labeling others as soulless without recognizing the emptiness in our own unexamined patterns. Both lead us astray. And so, as we step deeper into this journey, let us hold the paradox. Perhaps some truly walk the earth without soul. Or perhaps what we call soulless is a state one we all risk falling into when we live unconsciously. Either way, the responsibility is the same: to sharpen awareness, to guard our energy, and to choose presence over imitation. In the next chapter, we will begin to look at the signs, the subtle but unmistakable fingerprints of soullessness. And once you know them, you will never mistake performance for presence again. Have you ever walked away from a conversation and felt strangely diminished, as if a light inside you had been turned down? On the surface, nothing went wrong. The words were polite, the smiles present, and yet something in you whispered that it wasn't real. This is the first and most reliable sign of the soulless. It is not what they say in the moment, but what lingers after. A true encounter with soul leaves you more whole, more grounded, more alive. A soulless encounter leaves you foggy, drained, and uncertain. The body knows before the mind catches up, and that small sensing is where wisdom begins. Think of emotional life as a terrain. Soulful people carry a depth that trembles at beauty, that cries at injustice, that rejoices in music and finds refuge in silence. Their responses flow from an inner well. The feeling arrives first, and language follows. By contrast, the soulless may imitate feeling with uncanny precision, yet the resonance is missing. Laughter sounds rehearsed, sorrow evaporates too quickly, smiles stop at the surface. It is not that emotion is absent, it simply lacks weight, like an actor reciting lines without ever inhabiting them. Modern neuroscience reminds us that emotion is not mere ornament, it is the body's language for meaning. When emotional processing is blunted, choices flatten and life loses contour. From a spiritual vantage, this is the void the ancients feared: animated form without an inner flame. Empathy is another hinge in the meeting of souls. Have you ever shared your pain and watched the other's eyes glaze, not from cruelty, but from disconnection? Empathy is not a technique or a gesture. It is resonance, a brief opening in which one soul answers another, and the boundary between selves softens. Soulless individuals can mirror words, nod at the right moments, even offer touch, and still never truly meet you. Their gaze remains flat, their timing is slightly off, and you walk away feeling lonelier than before. Psychology has tools to measure these differences, and spiritual traditions have long called attention to the same absence, a vessel that cannot hold the heat of compassion. Where empathy fails, strategy often takes its place. Soulless beings form relationships not to connect, but to control. Their tools are charm, guilt, gaslighting, and a practiced staging of intimacy. They know the vocabulary of closeness without its music. Apologies carry no weight, and promises evaporate. What appears as care becomes leverage. Ancient teachers named such presences counterfeit spirits, sweet on the tongue, ashes in the heart. Modern observers use different labels, but the pattern is the same: relationship as transaction rather than meeting. A living soul grows. It stumbles, it learns, and its wounds deepen tenderness. The soulless, by contrast, recycle the same patterns endlessly. They may change masks, but not essence. In Buddhist imagery, they resemble hungry ghosts, beings that consume without transformation. Spiritually, the soulless embody that archetype. Psychologically, they are personalities that never encounter the mirror of conscience. The eyes often reveal the truth. Soulful eyes hold depth, curiosity, and presence. Soulless eyes can be glossy and vacant, reflecting like polished glass with nothing behind them. Taken together, these signs form a pattern. One empty smile proves little, and one flat exchange may be fatigue, but repetition traces an outline. This knowledge is not an invitation to paranoia or cruelty, but a call to sharpen discernment. The real danger is not merely being in the presence of the soulless. It is losing your own soul by answering with bitterness, cynicism, or superiority. As you learn to recognize these fingerprints, ask also where you may be hollowed by unexamined habit, for discernment protects the living core as surely as it guards the thresholds. In the next chapter, we will step into the heart of the mystery, how the soulless feed, why their presence so often leaves us exhausted, and what that reveals about the hidden economy of human energy. Have you ever left a conversation feeling as if someone had quietly stolen the air from your lungs? Um, Not because of what was said, but because of how your body felt afterward: foggy, exhausted, strangely less yourself than before. This sensation is the signature of the soulless. They do not generate light of their own, they survive by siphoning it from others. And the most unnerving part is this: many of them do not even know they are doing it. The theft is subtle, and it often goes unnamed until we learn to notice the depletion itself. Across traditions, the soul was described not only as consciousness, but as vitality, a subtle current you could feel in the presence of a true sage. In Chinese medicine, it was called Shen. In Indian philosophy, it was known as prana or Atman. Mystics said that standing near one who carried this current felt like stepping into sunlight. You left nourished, as though you had stood in the sun for a moment. But when someone carries no such current, the dynamic reverses. They pull your radiance into their emptiness and leave you with the bill. Modern clinicians have glimpsed the same pattern. Psychiatrists and energy-sensitive observers describe personalities that leave others physically depleted: headaches, anxiety, sudden fatigue after prolonged contact. They sometimes call them energy vampires. It is not merely toxic behavior. It can look and feel like extraction, straction. Notice how the soulless often thrive in chaos. They are rarely still. They stir arguments, provoke reactions, and pull others into loops of explanation and defense. Why? Because emotional turmoil releases energy. Anger, fear, confusion, these are not simply states. For some people, they are food. The mystic G.I. Gurdjieff warned of what he called mechanical people, those who exist not by inner awareness, but by feeding on the attention and reactions of others. He taught that the first step toward liberation is to observe, how does my energy shift in the presence of another? Do I become calmer, clearer, or scattered and drained? Another sign is the dissonance between words and energy. Soulless individuals often speak the language of light, love, awakening, compassion. Their tone may sound calm, even inspiring, but your body tells a different story. Instead of feeling expanded, you feel contracted. Instead of clarity, you feel fog. This mismatch is not imagination. It is your system alerting you that the vocabulary is decoupled from frequency. The Zohar and other esoteric sources warn that false light is more dangerous than darkness because it disguises absence with the costume of truth. When someone speaks of love without embodying it, they do not simply fail to nourish you. They siphon the energy you give by listening, by hoping, by trusting. If you want to see the dynamic revealed, try silence. Soulless people cannot abide it. Stillness reflects their inner void, so they rush to fill it with chatter, provocation, or distraction. A soulful person can sit in quiet and radiate warmth without words. A soulless one unravels in the same stillness. Pay attention to the residue they leave behind. After time with a soulful person, even if you are challenged, you leave feeling larger, more yourself. After the soulless, you leave confused, doubting, heavy. Energy is exchanged in every interaction. Some give, some take. Some leave you richer, some leave you hollow. And here lies the subtler lesson. The soulless do not only drain us, they reveal where we are leaking. They show the thin places in our boundaries, the moments where our attention is misallocated, the habitual places we hand over our light without inquiry. Once you learn to recognize the pull, you can stop feeding it. You can refuse to mirror chaos. You can choose silence instead of reaction. You can bless from a distance rather than rescue up close. The soulless may survive on borrowed light, but you do not have to supply it. In the next chapter, we will face the hardest question of all. If such hollow beings exist, why are they here? And what role might emptiness play in a universe woven by consciousness? The answers may unsettle you, but they may also set you free. If soulless beings exist, then the question we cannot avoid is this: why would a universe governed by intelligence, by order, by some deep law of meaning, allow empty vessels to walk among us? Are they accidents, cosmic glitches, or could their presence carry a hidden purpose? Across traditions, the answer is not despair, but paradox. In Hermetic thought, we find the principle of polarity. Everything has its opposite, and through contrast, truth emerges. Shadow makes us aware of light. The soulless force us to sharpen our discernment by showing what it feels like when presence is missing, so we never again mistake performance for reality. The Bhagavad Gita frames it even more starkly. Lord Krishna tells Arjuna that the battlefield of life is not merely a clash of armies, but a test of perception, a call to see what is real beyond illusion. The soulless may wear masks of charm, charisma, even spiritual authority, but their absence of depth becomes a mirror that shows us the value of authenticity. Think of the last time you walked away from someone and felt drained, unsettled, dimmer. At first, you may have blamed yourself. Too sensitive, too weak. But later you realize the experience had sharpened you. It taught you to trust your body's signal and to honor your intuition. In that way, the soulless become unwilling teachers. They do not carry wisdom themselves, yet they awaken wisdom in us by forcing us to notice the difference between hollow and whole. Edgar Cayce suggested that Earth is not only a home, but a school. Souls incarnate to learn, to grow through struggle, to remember who they are. If every encounter were nurturing, would resilience ever form? The presence of the soulless becomes a training ground. They tempt us to give our power away, and by resisting, we reclaim it. They lure us with false intimacy, and by refusing, we strengthen our boundaries. Carl Jung warned that the unconscious is contagious, that we absorb the sleep of others unless we remain alert. So the soulless test whether we will collapse into imitation or stand in authenticity. They do not evolve themselves, but they pressure us to evolve. Another role they may play is to break us from one of humanity's deepest addictions, the hunger for external validation. Soulless people are masters of reflecting what you want to hear. They flatter, they mimic, they mirror your desires. But behind that mirror, there is nothing. When you finally see that void, you stop seeking confirmation outside yourself and begin to anchor in inner knowing. This is spiritual maturity, the ability to trust your soul's signal more than anyone's performance. So, how do we live with this awareness? Not with paranoia and not with pride, but with responsibility. If you still feel, still question, still ache for meaning, you carry the burden of clarity. Protect your energy by beginning each day with intention and by holding a humble boundary of light, not from fear, but from recognition that your energy is sacred. Do not waste yourself rescuing the unwilling. The soulless are not wounded healers waiting for your love to fix them. That illusion traps you in endless cycles of drain. Save your compassion for those who can awaken. Shine without explanation. Your role is not to convince or convert, but to embody what they cannot. Presence, authenticity, depth. Here lies the ultimate paradox. The soulless are not here to break you. They are here to wake you, to force you into vigilance, sovereignty, and deeper presence. They are the resistance that builds your strength. And if they cannot be changed, then what is left of becoming more awake, more anchored, and more sovereign? And that work is everything. What if everything they take from you, your time, attention, energy, still cannot reach the one thing they truly want? There is a core within you, a flame no mimicry can copy, no parasite can steal, no counterfeit can dim. That flame is your soul, the one reality they cannot touch. Soulless people may imitate empathy, recycle charm, or drain vitality, but they cannot manufacture soul. They cannot create presence, compassion, or genuine wonder. They cannot generate meaning, only consume it. That is why, despite their masks, you hold an advantage they will never understand, the living resonance of a soul-aware life. Across mystic traditions, this truth appears in many tongues. The Upanishads name it Atman, the indestructible essence. Christian mystics spoke of a divine spark that no darkness can extinguish. Sufi poets sang of a flame that survives every storm. Even Einstein hinted at it when he wrote of the profound emotion we call mystical. That sensation is the echo of the flame itself. Soulless people, by contrast, are shadows that dance only when light is near. They cannot radiate on their own, and so seek your attention to feel briefly alive. The greater danger is not their existence, but our forgetfulness. If you forget who you are, if you trade sovereignty for approval, if you mistake noise for nourishment, you shrink your own flame. But when you remember, when you anchor in the knowing that your soul is real and radiant, their power collapses. They can drain only what you freely give. Think of attention as a fortress with one gate. Guard that gate and the walls stand firm. Leave it unguarded and invaders pass through. Every encounter with the soulless can become an initiation. Instead of asking why they are here, ask what they reveal in you. When you feel drained, you learn where your boundaries are thin. When you feel unsettled, you learn to trust intuition over appearance. When you feel hollowed out, you return to practices that fill you: meditation, silence, nature, community. By turning encounter into initiation, you transform harm into curriculum, pain into lesson, and depletion into invitation. Edgar Cayce called Earth a school for souls, and sometimes the harshest instructors are those who embody absence. Facing them without hatred builds endurance. Blessing them from a distance refines compassion. Refusing to mirror their emptiness becomes an act of sovereignty. In an age when artificial intelligence can mimic speech and social media stage personalities, the soul resists coding. Algorithms predict preference but cannot create meaning. Machines replicate behavior but cannot awaken conscience. Do not crusade and do not label everyone you distrust. Your work is simpler and harder. Embody the light they cannot touch. Carry presence into a distracted world. Love without leaking. Stand firm with discernment while keeping compassion alive. You may collapse into the program, repeat, react, recycle, or you may awaken. Awakening is not proving others empty, it is proving yourself full. Soulless beings may test, drain, and unsettle you, but they cannot define you. Your soul is not theirs to steal. Your flame is not theirs to dim. Their existence makes your light rarer, more precious, more necessary. In a world of mirrors, the authentic flame becomes a revolution. So here we are. We began with a question that most people fear to ask. Could some who walk among us be empty vessels, mimics of humanity without the flame of soul? We listened to ancient philosophers, mystics, and modern thinkers, and we followed echoes from Plato's cave to Gnostic warnings, from Jung's maps of the shadow to Casey's visions and Bostrom's simulations. Through these voices, one truth returns. Whether literal or symbolic, the soulless exist, and they remind us that not every smile carries depth, not every presence carries light. But the story was never really about them. It has always been about you. The choices you make when faced with emptiness, and how you carry your flame in a world that often feels mechanical and drained of presence. The paradox is this: the soulless cannot touch your soul. They can mimic gestures, consume attention, and drain energy, but they cannot seize the essence that makes you alive. That flame cannot be given or stolen. The real danger is forgetfulness, the slow erosion of knowing who you are. So the call is not to paranoia, but to responsibility. Wake with discernment. Honor the intuition that speaks when a conversation leaves you foggy, when a smile feels hollow, when a pair of eyes returns no reflection. Trust the body's quiet wisdom that says, this is not resonance, this is not light. It is not your job to fix every absence or to rescue those who refuse to awaken. Your work is to protect your flame and to hold a boundary that is not fear, but stewardship. Every tradition offers counsel for this work. Rumi urged, do not get lost in another's storm. Let them be lost in your silence. Jung taught that knowing your own darkness is the method for dealing with the darkness of others. Edgar Cayce counseled keeping the heart clean and learning to bless from a distance. These teachings point to a single practice. Sovereignty is clarity more than control. Carry that clarity into your days. When social media rises into noise, remember, not every voice carries soul. When family or workplace chaos demands your attention, remember, not every presence deserves your energy. When imitation tempts you, remember, you were born to create, not repeat. The more soulless presences you meet, the more fiercely you learn to live with soul. Their absence sharpens your presence, and their hollowness deepens your gratitude. Will you let the program define you, or will you stand as proof that humanity is more than imitation? If this message touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment with your experience. Your story may be the mirror that awakens someone else. And subscribe to Awakened Wisdom, where ancient truth meets modern awakening. Remember this: the soulless cannot touch your flame. Only you decide how brightly it burns. Stay awake, stay sovereign, stay soul.